This conference will now be recorded.
Well, I will call the meeting of the March 13th, 2024 Airport Advisory Board to order. If you could please call the roll.
Jay Henry,
Present.
Bart Montier,
Present.
Peterson,
Present.
Scott Phillips,
Present.
Jason Halley,
Present.
Bill
Present.
Rocco
Present.
Oh, Nadeem.
Here.
I think this is the first time in at least 3 or 4 years that, maybe 4 or 5 years, that everybody has been present. So that's awesome. Rocco, could you lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving along, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. There were some corrected minutes that went out, I think, earlier today from Robin. Are there any other corrections to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I haven't seen the corrected minutes, so I probably can't make a motion.
I have. Excuse me. I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes as read.
Is there a second?
A second.
All right. First, second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving along to public comments. If there's any public comments for an item that's not otherwise on the agenda, please step forward to the lectern, state your name, where you live, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody that'd like to make any comments? All right, we'll close the public comments. Travis, you want to give us the quarterly report?
Microphone work? Oh, good. Yes. So I've got 10 different things I was going to just go over that have happened since we met last time. Before I get to those, I just wanted to apologize that we sent out the agenda and changed it on you guys, just so you know how that works. Between now and the next meeting, I just send Robin any ideas that I have for things that we might want to talk about or things that might be coming up, and then she sends those out. And then oftentimes we change it at the last minute. So that's why you guys got that. So I'm really sorry. We don't mean to send you guys multiple ones, but that's why that happens. First thing I had was we haven't had any major incidents or accidents that I'm aware of in a while, actually. It's been pretty good. We had the snow festival this year, our second annual snow festival down by the museum. It was really successful. We had they did a skijoring demonstration down there, and it was really good. So we're planning on doing that again next year. Snow removal this winter has gone great. It was nothing like last winter. We've been working with Jeff Dowling over at OK3. We've got a really good system. We work together, I think, really well. And it's gone great. So snow removal has been good. Haven't had to a whole lot. Haven't had to shut down the runway. Typically we get 2 or 3 days where it's icing so bad that it becomes like a 1 or a 0. This year, I think we had it for maybe 2 hours one time. So we've lucked out on that. We're working on 2 environmental projects. One's the phase 2 environmental project for the unpermitted landfill back past the museum. So we're working on that. We did that thing where we shot all the lasers down into the ground, figured out basically how deep it is and how wide that area covers. Recently, we monitored multiple wells around the airport to make sure that there's nothing seeping down through that landfill. Mostly they're looking for heavy metals and things like that. So we did a very in-depth study on multiple wells, and so far it's going really good. We're working with the state. We brought them in, let them know what we're doing, and they've been very positive. They've really liked what our engineers have done and how they've presented their research. They're very, very pleased with how we're doing with that. The other environmental is the general, they call it an EA. It's a general environmental assessment for the whole master plan that we just approved. So we're working on that as well. And those projects will probably be a year and a half-ish, give or take. Just so you guys know, I've been working with the county. We're considering naming that road to Gate 3. It's an unnamed, unnumbered road right now over towards the horseshoe hangars. So we're looking at least giving it a number and possibly a name, hopefully something aviation related.
Wings Road?
Maybe Wings Road, I don't know. something aviation related, hopefully. Most of you know that OK3 and the city worked together to get a new AWAS. So it's an AWAS 3 PT is the technical term for what it is, from Mesotech. It's worked great. If you get your phones out, you can pull it up right now. There's a couple different ways of accessing it, but if you go to khcr.awas.live, there's a website that's really awesome. Mesotech's more high tech, I think, than the last one was. We put the monitor that used to be out in Nadim's hangar out there is where the old one was, the old computer. We put it in his offices inside, so it's protected from the weather. We last year we had a lot of issues with the cables getting yanked out from the ice and snow. So they put the cable straight down through the roof and ran it inside. So hopefully that doesn't happen anymore. The phone has been fixed, so you can call it up on your phone. And there's a really good blog. If you look up Mesotech Heber AWAS, there's a really awesome blog that they wrote about the AWAS and OK3 and the city. And so we're really excited about that.
Just thank you, Nadim. I know you were instrumental in that, and I appreciate that every time I'm coming in and out.
Another thing, a lot of pilots in the wintertime, I get lots and lots of calls at all hours of the day and night asking me what the runway looks like and what the conditions are. We try to keep up with the NOTAMs as best we can whenever I'm there. A thing that I don't think people realize is that we're the only airport in the state that has cameras that you can look at and see different directions. You can see the apron. I look at it all the time in the wintertime when I'm deciding if I got to go out and plow or not. If you can see the fuel farm's got its lights and the fuel truck's there, if you can see the reflection, you know that it's just wet and it's not snow. So
they're FAA approved.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only FAA approved cameras
Yeah.
in the state. So they're actually on the FAA website. They
Yeah,
started off in Alaska doing that and then just kind of migrated to the United States. But
so
you have to go
Alaska,
through a process where they actually approve them, but
yeah,
they're
We're
not
the
widely
only one.
known or used for some reason, but they're
No.
there and they're very helpful.
So I made these like when a house is selling, they've got the little boxes you can take the flyers out of, and they're weatherproof kind of. I put some of those at each of the gates. So things like that, I'm gonna write things up so that when we're gonna have an event or something's going on, we can have those flyers so that hopefully the word gets out more. But one of the things I want to put in there is one, the new AWAS, that it's there and it's functioning and places you can access it, and then also things like that, like these FAA cameras, you can either get on the FAA's website, like Nadim said, or you can get on Nadim's website. You can get on OK3 and click on that. And so there's multiple ways of finding these cameras. The Young Eagles, they're going to be doing some Young Eagle and Adult Eagle flights this summer, so that'll be fun. UAOA is a group, so there's about 65 public use airports in Utah, and I'm part of this group. It's called UAOA. Utah Association of Airports. We meet every 6 months. So every March we meet in St. George, and then every fall we rotate different airports. So we just did it here 6 months ago at the UVU campus. So we just had that. We had a lot of topics they go over, and you guys are all welcome to go to these. Anyone can go to them. It's every 6 months. If you're interested, let me know and I'll put you on a list. But we went over things like airport electrification, Title VI airport non-discrimination compliance, master planning, environmental topics, airport lighting and weed spray, state aeronautics and the FAA give us updates every time. They went over capital improvement plans. They had a workshop for that, unmanned aircraft systems, homeland security training. They're specifically focusing now on general aviation airports. So they have training for what to look for like human trafficking and stuff like that. And then the last thing I had was upcoming potential construction projects this year. We have quite a few, so we're going to be hearing about the glider park, the T hangars. Jason's got stuff going on. OK3 is going to be building another box hangar. Mel McQuarrie's probably going to be building a box hangar, and then that taxi lane right in front of Prope's hangar and OK3's Daniel hangar number 1. We're likely going to be doing a taxi lane improvement on that as well. So those are some of the things I thought you guys might want to hear about. Any specific questions about anything?
I don't know if this is the proper time for it, but I've had a number of requests from hangar owners for a dumpster. And the thought is you could put one back by your office. If it's abused, you could take it away. But we feel like we pay enough in rent, we ought to have a place to dump our garbage.
We could look at that. I mean, I know Nadim has to put a lock on his because people were just dumping all their junk all
Yeah,
over the place.
of course. And
I don't want to pick up all that junk, but I think we could try it.
I've heard the same thing.
And
too,
the other problem is people that have come to me asking for that, they're telling me it's because they have a bunch of metal and stuff that they want to throw away, and you can't put metal in those. So we already have, if anyone at the airport has trash, you can bring it to me in a clean bag and I'll get rid of it for you. So we do have it, but if you guys want to talk about getting it, I've just heard negative things in the past. And like I say, we have recycling, and so if you have metal that needs to be recycled, if you have wood that needs to be burned, or if you have trash or cans or I can take care of all that. I just don't want people throwing it in the back of my shop and I have to clean that up. That's the only reason I haven't done it.
I mean, we just used to throw it down at the end of the runway, but then we were told we
Right.
couldn't do that anymore.
Right.
So,
So I mean, it's you guys are the board. I'm happy to do it if you want me to. But like I say, we already have it. If you just bring it to me, I can take care of it. But anyway, it's up to you guys.
okay, if you'll take care of it, just put a sign someplace by your shop that says deposit trash here, and then everybody will be happy.
All right.
What was the AWAS to log in? You said there was.
So there's a couple
website.
different ways. If you just Google Heber Airport Mesotech's probably the keyword. They're the ones that did it for us. They do all the Air Force bases. All the AWASs at Air Force bases are Mesotech. There's only 2 companies that make AWASs. There used to be 3, but one of them bought out the other one.
If you'll Google Heber Airport webcam, the first thing that comes up is the FAA cameras.
Oh, okay. So then that's how you get to the.
But for the AWAS, it's different. So that's for the cameras. If you want to do the AWAS, you can do khcr.awas.live. Or like I say, if you just Google Mesotech Heber Airport AWAS, it'll show you the blog. And on that blog, the second paragraph down, it's got an underlined word. You can just tap on that and it'll take you to it. But it's really cool. It shows you, not only does it tell you like the preferred runway and the wind direction, it'll also tell you like what the crosswind is doing compared to what's coming down the runway. They've got all your, I don't know if it has your TAFs, but it's got METARs and things like that on there as well. It's pretty good. They tried to make an app for it, but they said it just didn't work very well. So a lot of people you get onto that website and then you can save it as, it looks like an app and you can just click on it and it'll open it up. So,
Thanks.
yeah. Yeah.
How's the new landing system, the tracking?
So that's one of the things that's going to be tonight. It starts April 1st. So we have to decide, we have to give hopefully we need to come up with how are we going to determine who is based and who's not. Because right now nobody wants to be based because they don't want to pay the Utah based aircraft fee. But now that we're going to start charging for landing fees, I have a feeling everyone's going to all of a sudden want to be based. Yes. So,
Not based, no, I am based.
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
based.
so the FAA says they have a very clear thing. They say if you're there 182 days of the year, you're based there. The state only cares about you paying them their registration fee. So to them, they're like, you're not based unless you pay this registration fee. And for us, we just want to know that you have some kind of a contract with the FBO, or you own a hangar, or you're a subtenant. So I have a feeling if we put those together, then it'll be pretty obvious who's based and who's not. Not just because they come in my office and say, I want to be, I'm based here. So we need to have something where they have to prove that they're based here.
Should we have that discussion now or wait until after?
I would wait till
Okay.
she has her thing. Anything else?
If,
All right.
if
Thank
they're
you.
proved to be based here, hopefully they're paying their fees to the state of Utah.
Right. If they're using the airport, they should be paying into the airport.
That needs to be part of it, I think.
Like, everybody who's based here should be submitted to the state of Utah.
Everyone who's based here needs to be paying their fees to they're like
Right, so
registration
like
fees.
Travis should submit the list to the state of Utah.
No,
No.
because Travis has the list.
So we have this new,
I know it's coming later.
So Vert Tower, the state of Utah Aeronautics, right? The Department of Transportation Aeronautics basically put these trackers all over the state. And they've learned a whole lot. They thought this many were based here, or they thought this many operations were here. Well, they're finding out there's way more operations than they thought, and they're in different places than they thought. So they have the tail numbers. They know you can't say I'm based here, I'm not based here, because they have the numbers. They know. So they can call people now and say, hey, you need to be paying your Utah registration because you obviously are here. So they have that. So you can take that list and then you take the Utah registered list and you can compare them. And they say, well, we all think we're based. Well, then you need to pay your registration fee to the state.
In reality, everyone with a hangar should have an airplane that's based here.
Well, it's not, so I talked to them about this, not about my aircraft, just to kind of understand some of this. And so there are situations where somebody might be, have a hangar or have a contract with you for hangarage or tie downs. But what the state told me is that if you're not here more than 182 days out of the year, so more than 6 months, you're not subject to the aircraft-based fee in the state of Utah. And then my next question was, well, what if somebody voluntarily wants to, pay a portion of that so that, some might want to do that? And they said, well, they could try to work something out where if somebody was here 3 months out of the year, they'd pay a third of the fee or something along those lines. But for them, it, at least what was explained to me was you have to be here more than 6 months out of the year to statutorily have to pay the fee in the state of Utah.
I think we should be more like California.
Oh, let's not do that.
Where you work,
Stop right
you
there.
work there one day and you have to pay California taxes.
I mean, again, I'm just, describing what was, told to me. So we could always, lobby to try to get that law changed too. I mean, that might be something that could be done.
My deal is that the airport gets those fees back
I agree.
that we pay. So if they're not paying the state registration fee, then they should be paying landing fees.
We
Unless
get about 90% of that.
Unless
those
they have a
funds back.
contract for so many gallons of fuel or something with Nadeem.
No, but I think, Jason, I think you're correct. I'm not up to speed on any recent changes. But like we have a client that legitimately is half the year in Colorado, more than half the year, more than 180 days, although he's in our hangar. So by the law in Utah, he's not subject to as a based airplane, so it doesn't pay. He may pay Colorado, I don't know. But and I don't know what kind of records, you have to keep. But I met with UDOT director years ago. Can't remember his name, the predecessor to Esselman. But I mean, I want to talk to him about some different subject, but he was really irate that he had like 1 or 2 turbine airplanes registered in Heber when he knew there was like an excess of whatever the number was. And he was telling me we're losing out on all this money. And I said, well, okay, it's not my job. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's not my job to go around and figure out who's based or not based. But I know it was a big issue with UDOT a few years back. And I don't know whether it's still an issue today, but I think there is a requirement where the airport manager actually has to report to UDOT what he has as a list of actually based airplanes there so that they can actually monitor the airplanes throughout the state. I may be mistaken.
They asked for best guesses, but there's no way, there wasn't anyway. Now they don't, now they have it. They have it. So they tell me what's.
I got an
They're
AD.
monitoring ADSB data.
Yeah.
And Vector has, I think they'll probably, I mean, I have an ADSB receiver, but
Yeah, open.
I-
You can get away with anything anymore.
I think it's, I think there's more than just a bright line rule of that because, to your point with the customer that you have, they're making they're contributing to the airport. Now, would I rather have their fees go to the state than Colorado because they're using the facilities there? Yeah, but again, we'll talk about it when we get there. Sorry.
In that case, that customer would, if he's not based, then he will be subject to landing fees. So he'll be paying his fair share. So I think one of two things, the based airplane, either you're based or not based, and either if you decide to exempt based airplanes from paying landing fees, then it makes sense that that airplane's paying UDOT the annual registration fee. But trying to pay neither, I think, is when you start getting into the sort of somebody trying to cowboy it a little bit, get away with it. And that's when they run into problems.
Is it cheaper for me to just pay my registration and then I get free landing fees? That's fine.
Depending on the type of airplane you have, for sure. That's if you decide to exempt landing fees. You may decide to have a different fee structure. You may have to decide an annual access fee. That may make sense. I mean, that's up to you guys and your consultants and all that, but.
I mean, you're based or you're not based. I mean, it's kind of a binary.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right, Jason, but when we went through it years ago, they wanted to have their cake and eat it too. And we said, okay, fine, give us a list of everybody who's registered with UDOT. And all of a sudden, and there was like 3 airplanes, but everybody else claimed to be based in Utah. And you're like, okay, you can't have it both ways. I mean, you're either based in Utah or you're not based in Utah. But they said, well, we don't want to pay landing fees because we claim to be based. But meanwhile, they're not reporting to UDOT. And that's where I think it's unfair. And that's when people are gaming the system and somebody's losing out. Yeah, it's one or the other. Either you're based or you're not based.
Let's save that for general business item number 3 after we get a presentation. So any other questions for Travis? Thank you, Travis.
Thanks for your work with the presentation and the whole event you threw this week.
Oh, down there?
Yeah.
Oh.
You still look like you're recovering from that.
It's really good and it's really worth it. And hopefully you guys can go. It's in Provo next year.
What was it called? Can you tell
Is that the
everybody what it
UAO?
was?
Yeah, the Air Force.
Travis was like in charge of that this year.
Oh, you were running it?
I'm the chair right now.
Oh,
Set it up and take it down and pick the speakers.
nice.
But we have a whole board. We got lots of people. Yeah. It takes.
Yeah.
Nice job. Thanks for bringing people to Heber. Let's move on to general business. Real quick before we dive into item number 1 on the glider park, I'd just like to report that I believe it was January 2nd. Was that the first council meeting of the year here? I can't remember exactly which. It was either the 2nd or the 6th. It was the first council meeting of the year. I was asked to give a brief overview of the Airport Advisory Board to the council, some of the priorities that we're working on, which are the items that we've talked about here, rates and fees, minimum standards, continuing to implement the master plan, the environmental reviews, and the council was very supportive of what we were doing and, generally trying to expand, the general aviation aspect of the airport and taking care of, the businesses that are here, as well as the users of the airport. Scott, did I miss anything from that?
No, you're a very supportive council right now.
Yes. So anyway, let's move on to general business item number 1, the glider park.
I brought 6 copies. There's 8 of you. Who's seen this before? Who wants one of these?
I'd like to see one. Thank you.
One more. That's okay. Yeah. Sure. I've seen it. I have a friend, Clements, that's based out of Boulder, Colorado, and he sends us, Craig, congratulations on the success of your airport layout plan, because Boulder's going through the same thing. And I just signed a petition, Save the Boulder Airport. Same arguments, same kind of people, same situation, same argument that they need to shut down the Boulder Airport. And the glider guys are rallying around because it's a very common place to fly gliders. As for me, I'm John Ackerson. I'm one of the glider guys that have flown out of Heber for the past 17 years. And I'm attempting to develop the very north field of the airport, kind of where Bart has his nursery area, right behind the horseshoe hangar. So there's about a 2-acre
piece of dirt that's not really usable for traditional aircraft because there's not enough taxiway clearances, and because gliders can operate off dirt or road base. The plan is that we build 7, 8, 9 maybe glider hangars. And these are specially built hangars that fit only a glider. They have no utilities, no water, no sewer, no electricity. They're solar powered, and they're operated 6, 7 months out of the year. They're not operated in the winter. So the nice thing is there's no snow removal required. There's no maintenance required. There's no city obligations for pretty much anything. There's no maintenance of asphalt because there is no asphalt. Currently in the design process, we're getting bids for, I actually went before the city development review board, and I got schooled by Willa out of Horrocks Engineers for my stormwater drainage plan that wasn't quite up to code, because I guess I have to worry about stormwater in a field and I have to have somewhere for it to drain. So I'm working with the engineers as far as getting a more appropriate design for my stormwater. Getting bids from Scott Keel for building the road-based roads around, and then it all hinges on the California company that builds the hangars. And we had to redesign the hangars for the Heber snow load. He only designed it for 45 pounds, and the requirements for Heber is 65 pounds. And so I contracted with an engineer in Heber to redesign the snow load capacity. And now my fabricator in California is trying to figure out how to build them, because they're a little bit more beefy to compensate for our snow. Are we going to be able to get it all together this year? I'm hoping. If not this year, maybe next year. My original target price per hanger was 25, then it was 33, then it was 40. Now it might be 50, who knows? I'm hoping I'm not, because of all the extras, the guys that have signed on and committed, we'll see how it goes. I'm still optimistic it'll go, but once again, there's only one manufacturer in the world that makes these kind of hangers. And right now it's kind of contingent on him whether he can figure it out. There is a way we could fabricate our own eventually, but that would add an extra year or two in delay and cost and hassle. So we're moving forward slowly. If anyone has any concerns or questions or problems, please let me know. I'm very open to ideas. I'm on my 8th, finished up my 8th design proposal. Who doesn't have one? Here's an extra one. The goal here is it's the ultimate win-win for the city, kind of a throwback legacy for the glider community, which back in the 70s and 80s was huge. Half of the landings and taking offs were gliders back in the day. They've diminished greatly because of the jet traffic, and other airports in Heber, specifically Nephi, has become very popular with the soaring community, but Heber still has some of the most spectacular flying in the whole entire world. Yeah, any questions at all?
What are you asking from the Airport Advisory Board? Or is there any ask? Is this kind
There's
of an
no
update?
asking at all. It's just trying to be a good neighbor and seek information and keep everyone well informed as our intentions. I'm trying to design this to be the ultimate win-win, that everyone wins. The airport gets money for land that it can't normally use. Gliders get a permanent, because historically gliders have never had a permanent fixed place to exist at the airport. We've always been shuffled around depending on airport needs, because we're mobile, we're flexible, we have trailers. And open. So if the gliders move out of the hangars, then there's more hangar space for general aircraft too. And so we're trying to designate a permanent location for us to exist, and the luxury of having a hangar, which normally, because I don't have a hangar, my glider's stored in a trailer, and I get to the airport, it takes me about 45 minutes of brute labor to put on the wings, the tail. I actually build my airplane. Then I go fly for 3, 4, 5 hours, come back pretty exhausted, it's hot, and then I have to take it all apart and put it back in the trailer and put it away. And the before and after is somewhat exhausting. So the luxury and dream of every glider pilot is to be able to roll it out, go fly, and then come home and roll it back. And save the couple hours of assembly process. Plus assembling it always adds a level of danger. Pretty minimal, but it still does.
How many hangars would you have to have committed to make your project feasible to begin?
6. And there's right now I've designed for 7. There might be more. We might be able to sped it to 8 or 9 eventually, but we're really limited by the runway object free zone delineated by the airport layout plan. That it's interesting. The tree that's out in that field and even the fire hydrant that's out in that field have to go. They're actually in the obstruction free zone.
I was going to ask about that on here, which is like, I thought that was in the obstacle free
It is.
zone, which is really sad that
So
I know that.
I was talking to the engineers, the fire hydrant is not frangible. And that's the FAA term for frangible objects. So eventually the fire hydrant will have to be moved. And part of our plan, the tree has to be removed. I'm trying to work with the fire marshal as far as access and being able to access the fire hydrant, have adequate turnarounds for fire trucks. And yeah.
One question for you.
Sure.
What's the flow? How do you get those gliders from that spot down to Alpha 2 or wherever you're going to launch from?
Either golf carts, most of us drag them by the tail with a golf cart and a little dolly that hooks on the back. So you push the glider out of the hangar, you rotate it and you drag it backwards by a special dolly that hooks up to a golf cart. Or you just push it, and some days there's not golf carts available and I just get on the tail and start pushing. My glider weighs about 600 pounds. So it's a little bit of work, but you can push it down to Alpha 2 where we stage and launch.
So you think you're going down all the way down to taxiway, pushing it to Alpha 2?
Done it many times.
Interesting.
Sometimes.
So is there a taxi lane up there or do you have to go through the dirt to get to the?
You have to go, this will all be dirt. This whole development will be road base.
Okay.
Yeah, no asphalt, which is nice gliders don't care whether it's asphalt or dirt. A lot of gliders operate in undeveloped, even grass areas, which alleviates any sort of long-term maintenance and also alleviates any need for snow removal. It's just pretty much up to the gliders guys to maintain.
So how do you deconflict? I've seen obviously gliders there for 23 years. I haven't seen somebody, hand push or cart a glider from the north end down south. If you got traffic coming up the taxi lane at 2-2 and you're pushing a glider, there's no way to get out of the way because of Hangar Row. What do you do?
Ironically, and that's when we start pushing, when we're on the very far north end, we start pushing, we're looking down for traffic coming up. And if there's traffic coming up, we actually pull off into the run up zone and wait for the traffic coming down the lane. And we just have, because it's a one-way road as far as traffic. And whether we're dragging it with a golf cart or pushing it, it's ironically about the same speed. We don't pull these super fast. It's aggressive walking speed or a little bit faster with a golf cart, but it doesn't take a tremendous amount of time.
John, I got,
Sure.
sounds like pretty basic questions. One, how many people fly gliders? I'd look through here. How many of you are there?
There's about 8 guys that are pretty solid, about a dozen of us total. There's not a lot. Historically there was up to 40 back in the day, but that's the numbers diminished. But we got about 8 guys that are just really solid that fly most weeks.
They all each own a sailplane?
Each own a sailplane. The club also stations a 2-place trainership here, and we're actually getting a new refurbished ship, an ASK 21 this spring, which will be just an incredible ship for transition training. Heber's kind of given up the option of primary training, so we don't have any technically student pilots that train out of Heber. They all train in Morgan or Nephi. But we do a lot of transition. Paul Schneider, one of the other glider guys, does a lot of transition training. So if a power pilot wants to get an add-on rating, they can do that through the club. And we're getting an incredibly nice sailplane this spring that was purchased just brand new for the club. Just brand new refinish. It's going to be a nice add-on.
And you have a tow plane that, I know you have, I've seen some of them with their own I think they're electric motors. But do you have a tow plane of
We
your own?
do. Dave Robinson in Hangar 1 has a Pawnee, a retired crop duster that does an incredibly good job. He also has a Cessna Bird Dog as a backup tow plane, and he's been towing here for 20, 30 years, a long, long time, and he plans to tow for another 10 years beyond then, that kind of comes into question, but we'll cross that path when we get there. But for right now, we gave up the ride business about 5 years ago. Insurance just got really, really expensive, and the confliction with the jets became really hard because we're trying to launch rides, and then we have to wait for 2 jets to land and 1 to take off, and then the rides would get backed up. And the ride business just got incredibly difficult with the amount of jet traffic we have and the cost of insurance. And that's why Dave Robbins gave up the ride. So right now he's slowly surviving on private glider tows, and he's actually doing relatively well. He did 300 tows last year and made a whopping profit of $500 after expenses. And our tows cost between 60 and $100 for each launch. And he did 300 of them. Back in the day, they used to do 2,000 tows. So actually glider traffic was significantly reduced, but it's still going. I'm one of the big contacts. Paul Schneider's the other big contact for any glider concerns. And then obviously Dave Robinson is a legacy, as he used to serve on the airport board also.
We've got a customer that's taking delivery, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, of a glider that's got an electric motor that pops up self-launching.
He sold his jet. He upgraded from a jet to electric self-launch.
Looking forward to seeing
It's
it.
a different world, yes.
I like the fact that you're utilizing really almost an unusable place on the airport for highest and best use. I think that works really well. I did have one question.
Sure.
Understanding construction on roads, dirt roads, are you going to have any kind of a grate? I'm going to call it kind of a track off grate between that dirt road and getting onto the, let's call it the road accessing the taxis, not tracking small rock on there?
Yes, the engineers, Horrocks engineers brought that up, and they said I had to have like 20 feet of paved asphalt before I hit so the gliders will go from the road base to a pre-taxiway where we'll roll for 20 feet, and then we'll enter the taxiway, and that'll hopefully debride the tires from gravel so we won't track any additional gravel onto the taxiway, which is definitely a valid concern.
And I've seen them where they'll put maybe a 5-foot grate in there that's the width of that, where the rocks can actually drop off across a different medium when they roll.
Right.
That might be something you might want to look at so we don't end up with FOD on that area.
Right. And that's definitely an active. We'll pursue that we're working with Ardura engineers, and we'll pursue that with them as far as what they think would be a compliant solution to be able to debride it's pretty much the golf cart tires and the single, we have a little wheel, and then we have a bicycle tire on the wing that we roll backwards on. And really, we're pretty simple.
Yeah, those metal, I have lost my voice, I apologize.
Good.
But those metal grids are fairly inexpensive.
Okay.
So you can also pull them off, clean them out as they get filled.
Yeah, we'll definitely take a look at that. That's a good insight there. Because definitely we don't want to, Dave Robinson pounds in our heads that we're number 1, safe, number 2, we have fun, and number 3 is we're good neighbors. And and he's really, really working on the glider community to make sure we're consistent with our communications, we're etiquette with where we launch and stage, and we don't add extra conflict to, jets and make people wait just because the glider's sitting in the wrong place at the wrong time. And anything we can do to alleviate conflict and FOD on the taxiway is actually quite a big deal because it can be expensive if it does aircraft damage.
I just got my commercial glider rating here in October, so.
Excellent.
On transition training.
It is. Anything else? If you ever want to get really airsick, come for a glider ride. The hand of God can come down and shake you violently, do corkscrews 10 to 15 times to climb up a couple thousand feet. My last flight to finish, I thought it was going to mediocre day in Heber. It was end of October, gusty, weird winds, took off over Walsburg. Normally I'm climbing at 300-400 feet a minute. All of a sudden I was climbing at 700 feet per minute behind the tow plane, which is crazy fast. I let go, and it was one of those weird mountain wave days where the jet stream hits Timp just at the right angle. It pops it up, crashes over Deer Creek, and over the whole Walsburg Valley was one big mountain of moving air going straight up at about 300-400 feet per minute. We let off at 9,000 feet. Within 5 minutes, we were all at 18,000 feet, bumping up against, trying to stay out of Class A airspeed, putting out our brakes and our flaps and stuff so we wouldn't get a letter, which we don't want to do. No one wants to get a letter. It's like, oh, but yeah, I mean, it's an amazing place to fly. We sure love it here. And like I said, we're striving to be good neighbors and hopefully find the ultimate win-win situation with this development. Any other questions? Yeah, my number's on the paper. Like I said, if you have any text, call, question me, any good ideas, like I said, this is version 8 of my plans. And every version has had significant modifications from input from different people of interest and knowledge of making the design better. And hopefully, maybe this year, if not maybe hopefully next year, we'll get it going and make everyone happy. Thank you.
Jason, I'm going to be excused. I'll connect remotely, but I got to pick up some young men like just showed up here. So,
Okay, well, thank you.
yeah, I'll be remote. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item number 2, update on T-hangers. I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, I can't report a whole lot because we don't have a whole lot going on. I don't know if we're at version number 8 yet, but I think we're probably well past that. We are finishing up engineering. We're finishing up building design. We're getting close to where we can have some ideas about what we're going to build there and when we can start. But the building, just the steel building alone, is out almost 7 months for when we finally sign a contract. So we're hoping, crossing our fingers, that we might be able to break ground on the infrastructure in June or July of this year. And then if the building shows up during the winter, all of the infrastructure's in, asphalt's in, concrete's in, footings, foundations, utilities. So the project's completely buttoned up before the mud season starts. So we're just, going through versions just like you are. And we're hopeful that maybe within the next month, we'll have an idea on timing and also start to be able to get an idea where we are on costs. But we're moving forward. We've paid all of our lease fees and everything, and we're just going as quickly as we can. So that's my report.
Okay.
I feel kind of like, I've lost track of this. How many hangars? Was this discussed at the last meeting? I'm just trying to get an idea of how many hangars and.
It's 16 total.
Okay.
Yeah, there's, because of the configuration, there's 15 and then a box hanger on the end. It's right here in the center.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
And what are you estimating? Just, I know you said you're still working the costs. What's the monthly rental? Do you have an idea what that's going to be?
Well, they're not really going to be for rent. They're going to be for sale. So
Okay,
the idea is
okay.
to be able to have pilots on the field, would be able to have their airplane inside of a hangar.
And based here.
Based here. Those of us that pay that UDOT fee, I want them based here too. So, but it'll be owned by an HOA. They call the Heber Hangar Owners Association will own it. They'll maintain it. They'll handle snow removal. They'll handle all those things. So it's a leasehold interest. It's essentially an 80-year lease. So it's a great project.
Any other questions?
80? 80 years?
That's 40 with an option for another 40.
All right, let's move on to item number 3, the discussion, the base requirements for landing fees.
Can you all hear me? Oh, okay.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear me. Okay. Does that work? Are we able to hear now?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So,
But I don't know
hello.
if they can hear you.
Oh dear.
Let me text someone that's in the chamber and let them know what's going on here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh.
Hey, Travis. Yeah, maybe I can join on the phone. Did you want to just put me on speaker? Okay.
Yep.
So, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be presenting to you again here. been working very cohesively with Travis. Like Travis said, we are going to be going live April 1st, this next month, in regards to collecting the landing fees. I wanted to just touch upon your comments earlier about based operators versus itinerant operators. Typically with the airports that I work with, the based operators pay fees in the form of hangar rents and so forth, tenant leases, excuse me, to the airport itself. And if they don't just, not in addition to the state registration, of course, check in with the specific requirements for the state of Utah. But in order to ensure fairness, charging itinerant aircraft versus not charging based aircraft, they have to be contributing in some way to the airport. So that's typically what I see when I partner with airports across the country. So I just wanted to highlight upon that. The second item, which had come to my team's attention when we began the onboarding process with Travis, is, and I don't believe I have the ability to share, but in your actual ordinance, in the fee schedule, we noticed that the landing fees for transient aircraft were $4 per 1,000 pounds max takeoff weight for everything over 8,000 pounds. And then you had landing fees for transient aircraft, $4 flat fee for every all aircraft under 8,000 pounds. It's tricky, but in that actual language, there is no fee for an aircraft that is exactly 8,000 pounds. So we are recommending that you change this landing fee ordinance to include the 8,000 pounds aircraft. And typically what we will see is that aircraft 7,999 max takeoff weight are charged the $4 flat, just to give you a comparison. And then aircraft 8,000 and above are charged the $4 per 1,000. Or if you wanted to have it aircraft 8,000 and below are charged the flat fee, and then aircraft 8,001 are charged at $4 per 1,000 pounds. So that was just an item that we wanted to bring to your attention. So to capture the revenue on those all aircraft that are exactly 8,000 pounds. Otherwise, we are not, according to your ordinance, able to charge those operators that have aircraft that have exactly 8,000 pounds. I know it's technical. Another thing that I spoke to not only Travis, but also we had a wonderful time at the St. George conference that Travis organized. Wanted to congratulate Travis on that. It was an absolutely amazing event, and I highly encourage you all to go. We had such fun. It was very educational and a really great atmosphere of people. But in speaking with other airports in Utah, and this is also what I am hearing from airports that we partner with across the country, is special event fees. And this is a special fee that is in conjunction with a particular event where an airport sees an increase in traffic due to such as the Masters event, or in Augusta is one airport that we're talking with. We also just recently partnered with Bullhead International in Arizona. They saw an influx of traffic as the result of the Super Bowl, as well as Formula One. And then in speaking with Rich, the airport director there at St. George, he is actually changing his landing fee ordinance. And that's going to be something that's being updated currently as we speak. But he said he's changing his ordinance to charge from 1,000 to even up to 3,500 per landing on those specific days where they see the inundation of traffic. So when they saw an overflow from the Super Bowl event, when they saw an overflow from the Formula One, they wanted to capitalize, like other airports have been across the country, in being able to charge a higher fee that is designated for a specific time And the justification for the fairness, according to FAA standards, is that the airports receives an increase in traffic at this time, which requires more maintenance. There's more wear and tear on the runway. So that's the justification there. But Rich is going to be receiving an increase up to $300,000 in additional revenue, apart from their regular landing fees as a result of these special event fees. And that was something that I had thought of about Heber. I know that Heber receives a influx of traffic during the Sundance Film Festival event. So that was something that I know you've been working with Kurt Castagna to update and have a look comparatively for our Heber Airport versus other airports across the nation in coming up with an updated landing fee rate. But that's something, it is a trend that we are seeing across the nation with general aviation airports, as they are seeing an increase, even 17 times the amount of traffic versus the traffic counts that they had last year. So that was something I wanted to bring to your attention. Also on the landing fee ordinance, just to circle back, that is something that we would need changed to ensure that we do capture those operators that are have aircraft at exactly 8,000 pounds. We're due to go live April 1st. We're very excited to be working with Heber and to help Heber capture the revenue that St. George and other Utah airports are seeing. We're on track to actually on board with other airports in Utah. Salt Lake City International is looking at putting a landing fee for their general aviation section of their airport, as well as South Valley and Tooele, as well as Logan. So this is something that all of the airports in Utah we're extremely happy to be working with and help you find more additional streams of revenue. Is there any questions that or concerns that anyone has here?
How do you know what a based aircraft is? Do you have a list?
Great question. So the base aircraft list, we would get directly from you at the airport. So that is something that would need to be determined. If there is no list by April 1st, or we will actually send out the invoices at the end of April, so we'll capture all activities for the month of April. But if there's no based operators that and a list that we have received from Travis or the Heber Airport, then we are going to bill everyone. We're going to assume that everyone is in needing a fee, that we have not received any exemptions. So that's something we want to work with preferably before we go live, because we would like to inform. We do a lot of education on the forehand. We send emails out to all of your top operators, informing them of the change and of the landing fees that will be moving forward. So ideally, if we can get that base list from you prior to April 1st, that is our goal.
I have a question. What database do you use to figure out who to actually bill?
The base, to clarify, use the base list to figure out who you actually bill?
No, I'm not talking about based airplanes, but transient airplanes. What database do you use to correlate a tail number with the actual operator and who the bill should actually?
We work cohesively with VerTower. And then we also have other data providers in addition to VerTower to confirm the accuracy and verify all operations. So we we take in ADS-B sensors, VerTower's information, as well as flight plan, etc. Other data sources that we merge and purge that data to ensure complete accuracy.
No, I don't mean about tracking the actual tail number. I mean, how do you correlate the tail number to who the actual operating company is that you should send the bill to? Meaning their end number is registered to trusts, or they're registered to. That doesn't mean that's necessarily the operator. How do you get the bill to the actual bill payer, i.e. the operator? Like what database do you use? Like Amstrad? Do you use JetNet, or do you just solely use FAA databases?
No, we go beyond, and great question. Thank you for the clarification. So we actually go beyond the FAA database. Our database that we use of unique owner aircraft operator information is proprietary. And it's a database that we have used and built over our 17 years of experience. And this is really the secret sauce to Vector and how we have achieved so much success, is because we see all of the operators that are flying into our airports that we partner with throughout the country. So when we onboard with a new airport, we typically have around 95 to 97% of those operators are already in the system.
Okay.
Elena, I've got a couple of questions. The first is, Heber is located in airspace that does not require ADS-B or transponders if you come in from the east. How do you deal with aircraft that, don't have a transponder on or ADS-B out?
Great question. So with VerTower's unique software, we're able to actually see the track. We're able to see the aircraft arrive and then take off, even with that gap of the ADS-B. And so we have this quite frequently. We have a lot of airports that we bill all the way down to zero, where they are, and so they're charging training flights. And you'll have operators that turn off their ADS-B. And how we fill in that gap is we look in our database, we look in through VerTower's system, actually track that flight path, and we say, this is the date and time stamp that you were at the airport. Here is, the actual capture of that operation. And so we can prove that the operator was there at the airport.
And I guess conversely, which still isn't my second question, if they're just doing a low approach, you don't charge for that, correct?
I'm so sorry, I did not catch that.
If they're just doing a low approach, you don't charge for that, correct?
Correct. So according to the law, the airspace is owned by the FAA. It's the actual airport. The ramp or the runway is owned by the airport. So if it's a low approach, we are not legally able to charge.
My second question is, how do you deal with PIA? How do you deal with PIA?
PIA.
Private ICAO addresses?
Perfect question. So yes, we see a lot of business license. We see a lot of LLCs, operators that are operating. They have their aircraft registered under the business license. And through the cohesive database and through our years of experience and collecting specific operator information, and it's very holistic. So we are meticulous in finding out who is financially responsible for the fees.
But that's
through our, go ahead.
That's not the private ICAO address. That's where you can actually change your ICAO address so that the aircraft has a different tail number that rotates as frequently as necessary to maintain privacy because of ADS-B out. So for instance, my aircraft doesn't show the tail number that it has. It's got a tail number that rotates probably every couple of flights.
Okay, so the tail number rotates between several different operators, is that?
Nope. No, the tail number alternates between several different actual valid ICAO codes that are out there. And there's a lot of corporate jets that are starting to use that for privacy and security reasons. So I'm just curious how you deal with that, because it's not going to be in your database, right? Because it's in one day, out the next. And it's not it's not public data. That's the whole idea behind it being private.
Correct. You're absolutely right. So through our years of experience, and we've seen that where operators are listed, they have the tail numbers under the private. However, through our working relationships with FAA and other data sources that we work with, we actually see information that is not publicly available. So we do see the operator's contact information behind those changing tail numbers.
So I think just to piggyback on what Jason said. So I think, because I heard you in a pattern, you fly with like megawatt or something.
So that's separate from that. But yeah, we have an ICAO call sign, but like in my CJ, if I'm using a different call sign, I actually, the tail number that's in the ICAO code,
Yeah.
it's actually
Changes?
changes like every third flight.
Okay, I didn't know that. But say somebody who's using take Solaris Aviation, they use Twilight, and their flight number is Twilight 300. When they come into the FBO, we don't know what tail number Twilight 300 is, but when they're on the ramp, obviously, we know because we interact with them. But not to dig into your proprietary information, but whether it's megawatt call sign or a rotating ICOA tail number, or whether it's a Twilight call sign, how do you guys correlate that to an actual tail number than an actual operator that you can bill? I mean, I don't understand it, but it doesn't mean, it's simply because I don't understand how your database works. But how do you cross-check all those things to arrive at an actual billable entity?
Great questions. And so this is something that we do see quite frequently. And so it is in our system to actually track those operators who work behind those changing tail numbers. It's more on my analyst has the more detailed answers than I can go into, but that is something that we do see throughout many of the airports that we partner with, and we do have the data. We do have the proprietary contact information of those operators, so they do receive those fees from us, and we are successful in collecting from them. We do track all of our successful collections for each airport, and we send out those billed activity reports to you. So you every single month, so you can see all of the billed activities and then the actual successful collections. And you will be able to see and verify the accuracy and success of our collection success rate.
So somebody that had access to your database will know where the Google boys or where Bill Gates is flying all the time, regardless of what privacy mechanisms they've set in place.
Correct.
I'm not asking you to reveal any confidential information, but it would have to operate that way for it to be effective.
Correct.
Very interesting.
Is there a lot?
Because the privacy thing.
What is your success ratio in your billings right now with the system? Meaning, out of let's say 100 bills are sent out, how many of them are accurate given these variables that have been discussed? Could you hear me?
I was not able to hear that question.
Oh, pardon me. What is your success ratio on your billing? So if you bill 1,000, send 1,000 bills out, how many of those are actually accurate?
So our collection success rate, and we verify this every single month with all of the airports that we partner with, is 99.6%. And the reason why that success rate is so high, I know it seems absolutely unbelievable, is because of our partnership and the meticulous operational data. So we don't just supply landing fee collections. We actually came from the VNOMs, the noise operations space, where you need more information, more proprietary aircraft owner operator information. And so that's where we were able to gather a lot of the proprietary data and build that database over time with that unique aircraft owner operators and their contact information. And as planes are sold or new planes come into the system, we are constantly updating and verifying the accuracy of those bills, invoices being sent out and collections received. But to answer your question, yes, our collection success rate is 99.6%. We verify that every single month with our back-end office to ensure that we're continuing to achieve that success rate. To my knowledge, we have not, the time we were unsuccessful in collecting a bill permanently was in the case of a bankruptcy.
So, but just so I can make sure I'm clear, maybe I'm slow here, but 99.6% collection. Does that mean that 1,000 out of 1,000 of the bills that go out are actually sent to the right entity? That's what I'm just trying to distinguish the two.
That is invoices sent and collections received and funds given back to the airport. That's the success rate.
I see. Okay.
What's the number?
Just real quick here, I think we've got a couple of things that we need to discuss. One, if we have any more questions for Helena, which I know you do, Bart. And then the second item is that we probably need to have a discussion as a board on what a recommendation would be for the council on what constitutes the based aircraft here, right? So kind of two distinct discussions, one that needs to involve Helena and one that does not. So just kind of wanted to set the stage for that. And then, I'm sorry, go ahead and have your question.
Use this airport, they have the ability to be able to change their.
Oh, with the PIA, the private ICAO addresses, I mean, you don't know, right? I mean, that's the reason is it's private. You can't tell that when you look at it. It would have, like a couple of weeks ago, it would have looked like I was flying a 182 when it was, decidedly not. But that's becoming more of an issue because, actually when JetNet got sold to a private equity firm, which has and then bought a ADS-B feeder network that didn't have the FAA blocking that was in place. So that data was getting sold to hedge funds and all sorts of places that, was using it for financial reasons. It's becoming more of an issue and it's becoming easier and easier to do. I don't know if you've ever messed around with that or not, but.
I just block it. I mean, but that's different.
Yeah, well, it's still visible by a private ADS-B.
Yeah, somebody can see
right?
it, yeah.
Yeah. So with the private ICAO address,
Looking at it.
yeah, you can't. Any more questions for Helena?
Yeah.
You're very welcome. And gentlemen, wonderful questions. If you would like further information and going into the analysis of our actual database, please do send me an email. I would have any information I can provide, let me know. And then, yes, if you would be so kind as to discuss the gap in the current ordinance, that would be extremely helpful for my team's end. And I'm at your convenience. Anything I can do, questions I can answer, let me know. Travis has my direct contact information.
Thanks, Elena.
Thank you.
So Matt, because of the pending date on April the 1st, it would seem to me that we need to make a recommendation tonight on something that would go to the next council meeting for them to adopt so that it could be effective on April 1st. Is that? Yes. Okay. All right. Nothing like legislating from the dais, right? Well, I think what we heard here is we've got two issues. One, we have to deal with the 8,000 pound, I guess, loophole. I don't know off the top of my head, is there any aircraft that weighs 8,000 pounds maximum takeoff weight? I was trying to rack my head for which one it is.
I have a question. What's the basis for 8,000 pounds? How was that chosen? Why was that chosen? I mean, the FAA used 12,500 for.
Smaller.
Can I answer that question real quick?
Yeah.
Because I was in the thick of it when that happened. And I apologize, Jason, I have a drop dead at 7:30 and I have people in town, so I have to leave. So I may be rude and have to leave. Because we actually instituted landing fees years and years ago. It took us a long time to convince Heber to adopt those landing fees. And we finally did. I can't remember what year it was, probably 2009 or something like that. And at that time we chose 12.5 because I think
it's a small airplane definition.
Yeah. So
in excess of 12.5 is not a small.
Yeah, and I think you have to have a type rating above 12.5, and somehow we picked 12.5. And then when Heber hired the new law firm in 2017, they showed up, and one of the first things they wanted to do is jack up the landing fees by a factor of 3 or 4 or something like that. So we got into kind of a negotiation / dispute with them. It was unreasonable. It wasn't justified. I mean, we kind of understood why the lawyers were doing it, but and then we said, okay, well then the dispute got into who's based and who's not based, and what about lighter airplanes? And for a while, when they didn't exempt any lighter airplanes, and they had the $4 per
per event and not by pounds. It put us in a bind with regards to self-serve. But anyway, long story, they arbitrarily came up with that weight of 8,000 pounds. So it wasn't like some kind of a study of, very involved study. And their lawyers just picked that number. I don't necessarily disagree with it. I have opinions about landing fees and who should be paying them.
I was just curious. It doesn't matter to me.
There's not like because there's a certain type of airplane or there's somebody else at the base was, had an airplane that's a little less than 8,000. It was a little bit pulled out of the thin air.
Okay, I was just curious. I mean, I weigh 1,200, so I don't have to worry. A couple of comments, Travis. $4 for a general aviation air. What's going to end up happening is small general aviation aircraft are simply not going to come to Heber. There's no reason to, come here. You're not going to make any money off of them. They're going to go someplace else. I mean, is the expectation that you're going to make a lot of $4? No, basically it's to keep people from coming here. I mean, that's really the purpose, isn't it? Yeah, that's the purpose. You don't want the flight school from Provo coming up here and using our airport for their training because Provo or Spanish Fork is charging landing fees. Okay. Well, I don't have
Bill, that's incorrect. Their attorneys proposed that at the time because they couldn't make an argument that there's a fair way to differentiate between certain airplanes based on weight. It was we pushed back on many things having to do with the amount that they were going to start charging, and it was obvious why they're trying to do that. But they could not come up with an argument to say, yeah, okay, well, we can determine that lighter airplanes somehow shouldn't pay anything, and they couldn't pass that with the FAA. And therefore they said, okay, we'll come up with a number of $4. But that's not why they came up with it. They came up with it because they couldn't come up with an argument about why it's fair.
I'm not arguing
just
about the landing fee.
Real quick.
But I'm rebutting what you just said, where it was put in there in order to discourage light airplanes from. That may have been the effect, but that was not the motivation at the time.
And Bill, just a moment, because if my understanding is correct, there is, and it was on our agenda, then was removed from the agenda, which was a discussion on rates and fees. And I think on the rates and fees, it does have landing fees and weight classes on those landing fees that would be for future discussion of this board. And I remember that presentation we had where they were looking at comparable airports. And, I know that at least at probably more than half of those airports, because I was looking up their landing fees, there is an exemption for aircraft that are 4,000 pounds and less. So I don't know how they got those through the FAA, but that was something that I saw when I was reviewing that. But I think the actual rates that are going to be charged will be dealt with when the rates and fees come before us. I think what we need to make a decision on is what constitutes a based aircraft at Heber, so that people that are based here don't get a bunch of bills come April 1st.
I disagree with you, if you don't mind. I think there are two tests. One is, do you want to exempt based airplanes and why? And if you don't want to exempt them, then what fee structure is fair to based airplanes, like an annual fee in lieu of a landing fee? But I don't think it's fair just to say, I know it's been exercised that way, but I think it's worth having the arguments, certainly when the city is trying to figure out a budget to raise more money of course I'm arguing against my interest because I fly airplanes in and out of here. But I don't think that it's easy just to say, okay, just because you're based. And the argument that the people pay rent, therefore they should be, doesn't make any sense to me. So you take somebody that has a 45,000 pound airplane and pays $2,500 a year in hangar rent, and they're exempt from 16 grand a year in landing fees. And that's like saying I pay taxes at my home, then I shouldn't pay parking fees in town, or I shouldn't have to pay the mark, or so if you're going to have that discussion now, I think it has to be a much wider discussion and really get into why, before you come up with a list, why is it that locals should be exempt from anything?
Okay, so let's start that discussion. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. That's a discussion to have, which is,
Jason, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
This is Scott. Just to give a little background on this too, the council had heard loud and clear from the public that the public wants users of the airport to be paying for the airport. And with all of the improvements that are part of the master plan,
That's a big piece of money that the airport users are going to have to pay. So we need to make sure we keep that in perspective as well. But I agree with Nadeem. This is a broader conversation, but I also think that for the purposes of April 1st, we can come to a determination of who for right now we deem as a based aircraft just to get started. And then maybe we have a broader discussion in our next meeting about, who's charged and what is charged as far as landing fees. But it should be pretty straightforward, I think, to come up with who is a based aircraft at the Heber Valley Airport.
Well, and I don't think we have to recreate the wheel here. The state of Utah already has a definition of a based aircraft, doesn't it? If it's here, then why are we debating this? Why wouldn't we follow whatever the state law is? I don't know how we necessarily enforce it, but if it is, it's 181, 182 days, and that constitute a based aircraft in Utah, then I think that's an easy one to adopt. You can't be challenged. It's state law, and it makes sense to me. So, I mean, to me, that's what I would propose if that's what it is. If your
I
airplane's
don't
here,
disagree with you, Jeff. I say if you want to go through that, ask Travis to get that list from Esselman, from UDOT, and then we can take it up after there and say, okay, here's what this is what UDOT thinks. Who do we think is based or not based?
well, I think, I'm not going to cut you off.
No, that's fine.
I was going to say, based on that, so if I understand correctly, if you land here after April 1st, it'll record it. So if I land and I'm not shown on your list as a based aircraft here, I would receive a bill. So it would be up to me to come back to you and say, Travis, I'm based there. Great. Mr. Johnson, where's your hangar? Maybe you store it at Nadeem's, you have your own hangar, you rent a hangar. How can you verify your airplane's here? It becomes kind of the burden of proof has to go back on them. I'm not trying to make this more complicated, but I don't know that we have to create a definition when one already exists at the state level.
Jeff, I don't think that them being able to track ADSB data is sufficient for them to conclude that an airplane is based here. I mean, you could be based in Colorado and fly out here every single day because you have meetings every day. You come from Grand Junction out here, so that the thing is tracking daily activity. That's not enough data for them to conclude that you're based in Heber. I mean, they need more, which is why it's so hard. Which is why they can't. Which is why the previous UDOT guy was in my face because he was upset that Heber had one or two airplanes reported as being based here. So tracking airplanes alone, I don't think they can do that. So they have to have either somebody self-reports or they're reporting to the airport manager. I think. I don't know what else they could do.
I don't want to know who's paid that. That's what's going to tell me. Are you based here? Did you pay the base fee?
You go online and do it.
There's people that pay to be based in whatever state because it's cheaper there, but they actually
Yeah,
spend all their time.
but for purposes of what we are, let's listening to what Scott said, and I understand what you're saying, Nadeem. For the purposes of determining what a based aircraft is, Utah is somewhat unique, and it has a statutory definition of what a based aircraft is, which is somebody that is here 182 days out of the year and registers that aircraft with UDOT and pays a fee based upon what the valuation of the airport or airplane is, and you get a receipt from that, right? And they do have some exceptions for what they consider based aircraft that are considered based aircraft that don't pay a fee to UDOT, but I think they're pretty small and generally like state and local aircraft and things like that. But you can either have the airport or the airplane operator report that to you, or you can get a list from UDOT. Can you get a list from UDOT of the aircraft that are based here?
Bird Tower has a list. They can say, here are their planes that the FAA would consider based at your airport because they have the 182 days. You can take that list, take it to the UDOT and say, here's this list. These people have all been here a lot. So they're already on the list. How many of them have paid you your Utah state registration? That gets another layer. The third layer that I think you might want to consider is, do they have some kind of a contract with the city? Because if they were based out of Provo, but they didn't want to pay landing fees here, they could say, well, I come here a lot and I'm registered with the state, but I don't have any contract with the state. maybe they need to pay, if you're a subtenant, maybe you pay an annual fee because you're a subtenant. So
Well,
pay something to make up for that.
But I think what I heard Nadeem say and what I heard Scott say is that it is important for the users of the airport to be paying. And if you're registered with the state of Utah, 90% or more of those fees that you pay come back to the airport, right? You are paying, and that's not paying for land, that's not paying for a lease, that's not paying for, a tie down or, whatever they are, being a subtenant. That's how your money for using the airport gets back to the airport.
I just another basic question. When you register your airplane with Utah, do you list the airport
You do.
as your, so it is, I mean, it seems to me that's,
You don't need to meld the FAA list. You just have the UDOT. The UDOT list is the controlling list, and I suppose that you'll.
I mean, you get a registration like you get for your car. So you can say, okay, everybody who claims to be here, show up to my office and bring me your registration.
Yeah.
And if they don't have it, you go, sorry. I mean, if you want to act, I mean,
Well,
it's that simple. Like either you show up with a registration or you don't.
this is
The
Scott
five-
again, real quick. We were just talking today about property taxes, and it's the same thing with property taxes. If you build a home or buy a home, you have to go to the county and tell them this is my primary residence to get the 40% reduction in your property taxes. So the onus is on the airplane owner or the homeowner to make sure that they're registered so they're not being charged the landing fees. I think that's really clean cut, clear, easy. Whatever's on the Utah list is who doesn't pay landing fees.
And it addresses the public's concern. It addresses, Nadeem, I think it addresses your concern if there's money going back to the airport from the users of that airport. And I don't know, how many airplanes do we think we have based here? So that it's like 7? No, how many do we actually think that are truly based here, Travis?
Probably 100 registered and less than 10 probably with the state.
That doesn't make sense. I mean, I have no idea, but I mean, those of us that pay that amount,
There's 3.
that the 45 or the 5,000 that I pay.
There's over 10 that are registered here. So,
No. I mean, I'm sorry. So probably I'm making this up a little bit. This is based on years ago talking to Pat Morley is who it was. And he claimed there's 100 airplanes in Heber and less than 10 actually registered with the state paying annual fees. That may be totally wrong, but I'm saying what I heard from him years ago.
When we started the master plan, we had 35 registered aircraft.
okay.
Registered, they're paying the state.
Yes.
I can't hear Travis, by the way.
He said there were 30, when they started the master plan, there were 35 that were registered and paying fees with the state. So, but I guess my point is that if you had to manage a list once a year of 120 aircraft, that wouldn't be overly burdensome for you to be able to generate.
No, we could do that.
list.
Like I say, there's little loopholes here and there, but I don't care. Like if that's good with you guys, that's fine. We can recommend
But you
that
still have to have a discussion about whether that is justification for being exempt
from a landing fee.
Travis,
which I don't agree
Travis,
with.
I'd like to say,
I'm
I
just
like-
one voice.
I'd like to address it. I pay taxes on my house, quite a bit of taxes on my house. And when the city comes to repair the road in front of my house, I don't get another bill. If I had a child and it went to school, I don't get another bill. I pay taxes on that hangar. And I expect for that taxes to have some service. And I think we're making this way too difficult, as is said. Put the onus on the aircraft owner that if they're not registered in the state at Heber, they're going to get a bill. Just as simple as that. I register every year. I pay my money.
So you guys don't want to worry about it at all if they have any kind of contract with, like as a hangar owner, a subtenant or
Well,
something?
no,
like
I
that?
mean, that might be the next level,
Mhm.
because I certainly pay you a lot of money. And I guess my last question is, come April, when I get a bill, can I bring it to you to pay? Yeah, because
That's why we got to determine what this is.
I think the consensus is that we pay taxes on those hangars and we expect a certain amount of service.
So as a hangar owner, you're saying as a paying hangar owner,
I'm not,
you
that's.
shouldn't have to pay landing fees.
Yeah,
So you're talking about
Yeah,
the
I'm
landing
talking
fees.
about
I'm just talking
landing
about base. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, how do we determine who's considered base so that they don't?
So let's deal with the base tenant. issue right now. Well, I guess that does kind of fall into what you're talking about, Bill, which is you believe that a based aircraft should be. Do you believe that somebody that has a lease with the city but is not registered in the state of Utah, should they be considered a base user and exempt from the landing fee?
If that person is
Well,
paying taxes on
if they're
on an
paying
owned
taxes
hangar,
on-
I believe.
Jason, can I make a recommendation? I mean, the city's about to pay a consultant a ton of money
That's right.
to come up with, and, we're trying to figure out every loophole here. And I mean, so is it reasonable to say, look, the intention of the city is that, as you heard from Scott, that users pay some fair share and ask the consultant to figure out a way or a formula or a system in order to capture what the city actually intends to capture? I mean, is that a reasonable, as opposed to us trying to crack a nut we're not experts at doing? I mean,
Well, I think we need to do something tonight to deal with the pending deadline of April 1st, right? So
you want people running really quickly to Travis's office? Don't do anything, and you'll see who comes and claims they're registered in the state of Utah. They'll be lined up in front of his office, and you'll see.
Once again, back to the comment, users pay their fair share. I pay my fair share. I pay over $2,000 a year in taxes.
So what about,
That's my fair share towards the airport.
a lot of questions I get is,
I mean,
is the subtenants.
But Bill, it's not, you can't look at it, I understand what you're saying, but there are people that pay the same tax that fly, say, a 40,000 pound airplane, and you can say, okay, well, then they're also exempt. I mean, it's a relative thing. But that argument, I get it what you're saying, and it's an emotional argument, but, we pay taxes, but we also pay for parking, and we pay for tolls in certain parts of the country, and you pay to go over a bridge, and you go to Canada, people pay to fly in the airspace. So it's not as clear cut as, I just pay taxes and therefore everything after that should be free. I think it's a reasonable discussion to go, who should pay how much based on what they're using, maybe the size of the airplane, maybe the number of operations. I mean, that's, if somebody's paying $2,000 a year in taxes, but, their actual effective landing fee rate would be 16,000, it's hard to make an argument that they should be completely exempt from that. That's why it should be left, I think, to some expert to go, let's make this a reasonable thing based on that utilization.
So right now, my understanding is that the current landing fee ordinance says that based aircraft are exempt from landing fees. That's the law that's on the books right now. And so we need to address the issue. I totally agree that the consultants are good to.
Does it actually say that? I don't know that it actually says that. Does it actually say that?
Yeah, I believe it does.
Okay.
Well, and let's not forget that the $5,000 that I paid last year to UDOT, if 90% of it comes back, that's $4,500 coming back to the airport. So if I did a calculation, I would be cheaper to base in southern Utah, where I also own a hangar. But I base it here because that's where the airplane stays 182 days a year. That's the law. I think we're making this much too hard. If the law is already there, then I think that's how you would determine what a based aircraft is. And then, but hold on, let me finish my point. Sorry. If I am mistakenly billed, I have an airplane that I sold back in 2008 that went to Europe. I get bills from Montenegro, Italy, about every quarter. So for some reason, it's still tied to me. I throw them away, but I know exactly what the landing fees in Montenegro are. But at the end of the day, the fees are collected. If 90% comes back to the city, helping to fund the airport, if we are registered in Utah, we are funding the airport. And we're getting far more than it would cost me to pay per landing. Now, if someone has a much more expensive airplane, if someone's got a Gulfstream, it's going to be a numbers game, right? But they're going to have to decide where they're going to put it. Are they going to leave it on the ramp? What are they going to do? But at the end of the day, if they get a bill in error or they think they're based there, all they have to do is come to you and prove it. And as Nadeem said, you pull out your slip out of your little glove box and you say, here I am. I'm based here. You don't have a registration? Well, then prove that you are based here. It's that simple. I don't think we have to recreate that. I think we have to decide our local aircraft exempt. I think that's Bill's question. But I think the first question, I think, is already answered, unless I'm missing the boat someplace.
But let me jump in there and say, having sat on, I'm back on the board, having been off it a bunch of years, a bunch of us should probably recuse ourselves from this conversation. I mean, anybody that owns an airplane should not be engaged in a conversation about what airplanes should be built. I mean, there's a conflict of interest. I mean, you make us sign these things about The reality is that should not be our decision because it affects us. I should weigh in it, you should weigh on it, Jason should weigh on it, and Bill should weigh on it. This should be somebody either who's not affected or an independent third party like a consultant. But for all us airplane owners to sit up here and say, I think we shouldn't be billed, that doesn't come across well to the public, I think. I mean, there's an inherent conflict there.
So you just leave it up to me.
Yeah, let Rocco decide. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think, first of all, we're only making a recommendation to the city council, right? So we aren't actually making a policy decision here. We're not impacting the actual dues. We're making or the rates or who is subject to them. We're making a recommendation. And I think that as a
but Jason,
board,
if you have a
we're
conflict,
doing
you
that.
shouldn't be making a recommendation.
Right, but it's not a particular conflict that is germane to this, such as if you were in a planning commission and you had a project that you were involved with materially. Here we're talking about something that's applicable to an entire class.
But
And
the
again,
important
I
thing,
think
it's applicable to the people engaging in the recommendation.
Let me ask a question. I did a little
sorry,
research.
Matt was
I'm sorry.
wanting to say something real
Oh,
quick.
Your point's well taken, Nadine, but under state law, you don't need to recuse yourself because you're only making a recommendation to the legislative body, which is going to make the final decision. Under your bylaws, it says that we want a very diverse board with people who have interest and own planes and own hangars. If you had to recuse yourself every time a decision came up, there wouldn't be a lot of people here to make a decision. And so it's understood that you have a lot of interest here and that we need that interest to make good input decisions. But it's the city council who had any financial gain from would have to recuse themselves.
Independent recommendation.
If you have a financial gain, you should recuse
Not
yourself.
for a recommendation body.
And what's the point of having a conflict of interest law?
Well, here's
Therefore, somebody should say, I have an inherent conflict of interest because it's going to benefit me, but I recommend you don't, include fees for my type of airplane. But I've said it, so that's fine. Well, that's not, just disclosing it doesn't excuse the fact you have a conflict of interest.
I got a, again, knowledge question. Did some research where we've kind of gone from registration to landing fee discussion. We're mixing that all up right now. That's the first thing. If we do a landing fee discussion, according to the FAA, what I read and what I remember is that you have to consult, you have to talk to the users at the airport. Are we representing the users of the airport? Therefore, we don't have to do, I'm not going to call it a referendum. We don't have to go out and literally talk to the people on the airport before we get into the landing fee discussion?
So I think what we're talking about here is we're talking about, for the purposes of Vector Aerospace collecting the landing fees, what constitutes a based aircraft. We're not talking today about the rates and fees. And to your point, I think that as we did in the master plan, when we needed to go speak to multiple segments of the community, whether that was the users, whether that was the operators, I think it would probably still behoove the consultants that are doing that to probably go out and talk to those interested parties and represent to us that they did that when they bring their data back. And certainly you have different operators that are represented here. To Matt's point, right? That's one of the reasons that they're here. You've got different classes of aircraft, different types of operators. And so I think there's some collective input from this body, but I don't think that relieves somebody of going out and having those conversations in some type of a format. And it's probably also just, good public outreach to do that as well. I mean, that's just my 2 cents on that.
I have one other question. Nadeem, that aircraft that's going to have $16,000 worth of landing fees that's registered here, how much do they pay the state for being a based airplane?
It's a percentage of the value of the aircraft.
So it's
I don't know the
probably
exact formula.
So let's just say it's a $10 million airplane.
Right.
And what's the rate? 5%, 10%? They're paying a ton of money to the state for having their airplane here. And that's what goes to support the airport. Having an additional charge for based airplanes is just double taxation.
I think that's a legitimate argument. I mean, I think that's an argument worth debating. But the situation you found yourself, if you actually look at the data, is that there are a lot of operators that want it both ways. They want to be exempt and they're not paying the state. So if you can find a way to crack that nut and go either this or that, but not neither.
By getting the list from from Utah Aviation of who has paid their fee and who is registered at Heber, and you could add another level on that if you want to put in a contract for a hangar. That's not hard. That's not rocket science. That's real easy.
But I see your point, but I mean, there's a counter argument to that as well, to say, in addition to the rates, whether taxes or whether it's hangar rental, not the taxes, but the hangar rentals are largely subsidized by the FAA. So, I mean, any hangar rates you look at are extremely low compared to any other commercial property. And, it's largely subsidized by, FAA funding. So you can make an argument that it's not unreasonable to pay an additional fee to have annual usage to it. And this is contrary to my interest. I mean, I should be engaged in this conversation because I'd be one of the guys that, was paying it. But it's not a crazy argument. It's not like, un-American or it doesn't make any sense, or it is a legitimate argument to have, to look at it and say, maybe there are some users that should pay, some share, maybe the full amount.
But the point is they're already paying a share.
Well, and how do you differentiate between a guy that lands once a year and the guy that lands 350 times a year?
That's irrelevant.
Well, it's not irrelevant to the runway.
If you're based in Utah, if you're based in this airport and you're registered, you pay every year a fee based upon the value of your airplane. And in my case, being an experimental, I'm lucky. I pay $125. I suspect the guy with the Gulfstream who's worth $10 million pays a ton of money. Now, if you want to raise more money for the airport, increase my taxes, the county taxes, which go up every year, or have the Utah airport people increase their percentage. But to add another fee, an arbitrary fee for small aircraft coming in and out at $4 is hardly makes any sense.
I think
it makes sense to some people. But I'm going to be rude, Jason. I actually have to get out of here. So I'm sorry to stir the hornet's nest, but I got to go.
I appreciate the commentary here. And I think that candidly, even though we do have, our own biases and we may have our own interests here, this type of discourse is what allows the city council to have a more informed decision when they have to make the political decision. And so I think it's really good that, Bill brings his view. Nadeem, you're bringing a view here, and there's, wide views in between, and they morph over time, right? So I think sometimes making the sausage is important. And so,
yeah, but I think it's important to know when there's a conflict of interest and to actually recuse yourself. I'm not saying you in that discussion, because we are making a recommendation to the city that's representing the citizens, and whether people that it's going to affect them financially are making that recommendation, they're inherently biased. I mean, and just saying that one is biased doesn't, the recommendation is going to carry some weight. So I think it is important if you want it to be completely believable. And believe me, I've watched this for 23 years. So I know what kind of biased recommendations have come out of this body. And I'm saying, I think we need to be very careful about it, because there are, and even the city attorneys is referred to at times, not the in-house, but, as a users and tenants group. And therefore it's inherently biased. And to overcome that, I think you need to be very, very aware, when people are talking about fee decisions and billings and other things when they have an interest in it. So.
Absolutely.
Sorry, guys.
All right.
Jason,
Coat. Nadeem, your coat.
That's my coat.
Oh, that's your coat. Okay.
You can have it.
Okay, so to get back to the request that we had, I think from Matt, Travis, we need to adopt what we view as a definition on a based aircraft. So I've heard a couple of things tonight. I've heard this body say that we simply use the definition in the state of what a based aircraft is, and as such, you'd be registered with the state. I've heard conversations that we should take a look at having, a contract with the city. And then we've also heard, that you need to have an annual kind of pass to land at the airport. full disclosure, I have a bunch of airplanes that land at the airport. I'm based here. My view is that a based aircraft, as determined by the state, constitute at least a prima facie case that you're a based aircraft here. There's probably some exceptions that could be made. And, I think that you empower the airport manager to make those exceptions if he feels that it warrants that, right? There is, a case of somebody that purchases an airplane in August and is a based aircraft, but doesn't have to pay a registration fee until January 1st of the following year, right? That's according to state law. And, should they be paying a landing fee? That's probably something that I'd be fine with Travis deciding myself, because I don't think it happens that often. Any other comments or thoughts based on that? Jay?
My thoughts would be along the lines of both Bill's and Rocco's. I mean, the state has a definition. If you are paying your fee, you should be considered a based airplane, whether you're here in 182 days or not. You're paying to be a based airplane. So,
And if we go.
and if you're not, you pay landing fees.
To add to your point, if we go to the state's website, it's all right here. They have all these frequently asked questions that says registration and uniform fee payments improve Utah's public airports by providing grant eligibility in FAA and state airport capital improvement programs. That's exactly how we get 90% of the funding for the airport. So if your airplane is based here, it's really simple. You're already funding the airport. So in my opinion, I don't think that based airplane owners, aircraft owners, should pay a landing fee. That's my opinion. Now, I'm one of many here, but I'm going by the state's definition. The state's definition says it right here. It talks about what defines if it spends the majority of its time at the airport, it's based here. I think we're kind of beating a dead horse or trying to build something new. It's all right here on the state website, or UDOT's website. I'm sorry.
Rocky, you don't have an airplane based here. How does this sound? How does this sound to you?
I think if you're registered in Utah, you're a based aircraft here. End of story.
And registered and say that you're based at Heber.
And say that you're based at Heber. I'm sorry, according to because I haven't registered an aircraft here. But if you register here, say you're here at Heber, you're a based aircraft. Anybody else? As the French say, tant pis, too bad.
And the fees that we pay if we're registered at Heber, does Heber get a portion of my
Yes.
fee?
So the more operations you have and the more based aircraft you have, the more funding you get for your capital improvement projects. So they don't just give us money, but we're constantly doing projects. Every time we have to reseal the runway, all that stuff, then we're not having to come up with as much to match that.
As users of the airport, we're supporting the airport by paying the fee to the state, which
and
back to you.
The more operations and registered aircraft you have, the higher you are on the priority list for the state and the FAA.
Goes, please.
I don't know the city council will agree with you on that, but.
Matt, if we adopt a recommendation on a based aircraft along the lines of what we're talking about here, is that what you need for the city council?
So, but I also think it had the issue dealing with the 8,000 pounds, making sure that you guys
Yeah.
agree with what the indicated, trying to decide whether it's 801 or whether it's 799.
8,000 and above or 8,000 and below.
Okay, so.
Can we change that to 12.5, the kind of the uniform standard out there?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Not yet. That will be part of the rate fees analysis that will be coming before you.
I think I'll be honest with you, when I did my research, I'm glad somebody asked why we came up with 8,000, because every place you read, it's 12.5.
Yeah,
That's the
maximum
standard.
takeoff weight of in excess of 12.5, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're 12.5 or below, you're considered a small airplane by the FAA.
So just so I'm clear, you guys are saying we want to go with the state's definition, which is.
We need to have a motion first.
Can I just ask a question first?
Okay.
6 months and a day and paid registered with the state.
I think
that's the definition.
I believe it is.
That's what the definition on the website is.
But I think to make it simple, you want to have some type of indication from the state of Utah that the aircraft is a based aircraft and is current with the registration, right? But don't put all of the other things around it. It's just, all the airport cares about is that you can present a piece of paper that says you're a based aircraft in good standing at Heber Airport with the state of Utah.
And I agree with you. And the reason that I would agree, that makes it easy, because again, going through the website here, there's $1,000 fine if you try and defraud the state. So if you say I'm based in Heber, but you're not, you face $1,000 fine. So
Every year I get my sticker and
Yeah.
I get my, piece
I
of.
don't get a sticker
of
anymore.
information. And whether I'm here for 2
Stop
days or whether I'm here for 200 days, the state is still getting their money
Yeah.
for my registration.
You guys,
But Jason's point's a good one. So if we just say, if you are declaring you're based here, and let's say they've gotten a bill, they bring it to you and say, hey, I'm based here. Great, show me your registration. That's all we have to do. It's within the state law. If they want to fight it, there's actually, all the legwork's already done for you. You can say, go to udot.gov or udot.utah.gov. Don't tell them to call Matt. He'll get tons of phone
different,
calls.
sorry, different
Oh,
Matt.
my
Sorry,
God.
not this
So-
Matt, sorry. Okay.
But I think that would be the easiest way to do it, and it takes all the pressure off you. The way I see our positions here is we're here to help this airport succeed financially, help guide it. And, I think what we're doing is trying to help make an easy to follow system. It's easy for you to enforce. And all you have to do is point them right back at the website. If they want to fight you about it, you just send them down to UDOT. Say, go ahead and prove it to UDOT, get a registration, bring it back. We'll waive the landing fees. You can smile and let them walk away.
How hard would it be every year, say the first week in January or the last day of January, to download all the base
it's not hard at all.
So that's the proof. You're either, you don't need to come to Travis's office and show him anything. You're either registered with the state or you're not, and it's easy to find out.
Just so you guys know,
who
it's not going to be
is.
with me. I have a guy that I'm going to have this go through. I'm not filtering out 50 people telling me they are or they're not. I'm just going to say, here's the number, call this guy, and he'll let you know. It's like the gate access. I don't answer gate access 50 times a day anymore. So
Yeah, and it wouldn't be the first. It's your registration's not due until the 31st, going through the website.
But there's also aircraft that register throughout the year too. So, so I think, again, you can download the list, which is, or your guy can download the list, which is the start. And then if somebody contests a landing fee, then the proof is on them to prove that they're registered with the state of Utah or something equivalent with the state of Utah.
Yeah, I agree. Super simple.
okay.
So is there a motion along those lines?
Motion for all of that.
I can make a motion if you want.
Okay.
I would make a motion that we follow Utah state law, and that the definition of a based aircraft is based on Utah state law, that the aircraft is here the majority of the year. And that would be it. And then there are no landing fees for
So perhaps what you are trying to say is that a based aircraft is an aircraft that is legally registered with the state of Utah and in good standing for Heber Airport.
You say you correct me so much better than my wife does. So
I'm trying to get the 182 days out of it.
Yeah, that would just.
no, I'm with you. He said it much better. So what if I can? I'll amend that.
Can I add one thing to that?
I'm sorry.
I just add one thing to your motion, that it's a recommendation to the council.
Yes.
Go ahead. Yes.
No, he added to the motion that it be a recommendation to the city council that they adopt a based aircraft standard based upon the aircraft being registered with the state of Utah and in good standing to Heber and registered at Heber Airport.
Okay. Do I need to repeat that, or can I just bunch up on top of what he said? Ditto. How's that?
I second the motion.
Thanks, Matt.
Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, I don't get to vote. So I don't have a conflict of interest. I didn't get to vote as chairman. Matt, does that give you what you need?
8,000. Yeah.
Oh,
Separate
okay.
item.
Separate item. Is there a motion? Is there a motion because of the 8,000 pound discrepancy to make a recommendation to the city council that you change, instead of it being 8,000 pounds, up to 8,000 pounds, and then 8,000 pounds and above? Is that sufficient for what you need? Is there a motion?
8,000 or 8,000, you say to run that by one more time.
So I think what I heard her say is that in any aircraft up to 8,000 pounds is charged $4, and 8,000 pounds and above, 8,001 pounds and above is charged whatever the rate
So
is.
we're not going to discuss changing it to
What about
12.5 at
Now,
this meeting.
as Matt indicated, we're going to be receiving a
No, that's
full
fine.
presentation on
I
that,
just want to make sure I
and it's a
understand.
recommendation to the city council.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we make a recommendation to the city council that the weights on the determination of a smaller craft and large aircraft to be 0 to 7,999 pounds, and then 8,000 pounds and above.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion on that?
How do they know what the airplane weighs?
They know that based, I mean, that's part of the
Is that what's on the-
type certificate data sheet. Yeah, TCDS says that, and it's also listed with the FAA.
Yeah, max takeoff weight.
So, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Matt, are you? Okay. The next item on our agenda is the discussion approve the date, time, and schedule for 2024 AAB meetings. Can you open that up?
So I think one of the only reasons we started at 6 o'clock before was because our city council member couldn't be here till 6. I think before we used to meet at 4 or something. So if you guys want to change the time.
I always prefer 4 myself, then I can have dinner afterwards, but that's entirely at the board's discretion.
4 o'clock would actually work better for this city council member, so.
4 o'clock would work better for you, Scott? Okay, I wasn't quite sure. So these are the dates that are currently scheduled. The next one would be July 10th, October 9th, and January 8th of 25. And does anybody have a problem with changing to 4 o'clock?
I don't go that far out. So
And we don't have to do them quarterly. That's just what we've been doing. We can do them as needed. We
I
can
like
do them.
4 p.m. better, especially if I'm back east.
Yeah, no, I like 4 p.m. personally. When do we think we'll have the rates and fees study?
Notwithstanding these very specific dates, anticipate having probably several work meetings to work through the dates. So you'll have these dates approved, understand the process, how we arrange for you several times to meet with the consultants and work through recommendations.
Okay, so do you anticipate that we would make a recommendation to the city council prior to July 10th? Okay, that's good. As somebody that's got a permit expire, well, I guess it's not now, but still. Is there a motion to adopt the meeting schedule as presented here with the time change to 4 o'clock p.m.? Bart, you move for that? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
did we get dinner in there? I heard dinner.
Oh, yeah, well, I don't know. It depends. I'll let you know what my wife and I are preparing. So, if it's good, we'll bring some. If I cook some ribs, I'll bring plenty. I think the last item on our agenda is a selection of the chair and vice chair for the next year. I have had the honor of serving here for several years. So it's time to select what we want to do for the next year.
Volunteer.
You still want to do it?
You know what? I'm happy to do it if the body so chooses. I'm happy to go back to being a regular board member if the body so chooses.
I like the way you run the meeting.
You're good at it.
You do a very good job.
Well, I'm happy to do that.
Sold.
I agree.
We need a vice chairman. Whoever says not it the quickest.
Is it?
There have been times when, the vice chairman was officiating a meeting, so it is important that we have that. So
You vote on the chair. Chair by acclamation.
We can vote on the chair by acclamation, Scott. I'll let somebody make a motion for that, though. Somebody has to make a motion.
Can he hear you?
Scott, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can't make a motion.
Oh, that's right. He can't make a motion because he's the alternate. So, okay. So we have a, for myself as chair, and you want to make a motion, Jay?
I'd like to make a motion that Jason Talley remain as chair and we adopt Bill 2 as vice chair.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Well, I will continue serving at your pleasure. Are there any other items, and thank you, are there any other items before this body that we need to consider? Travis, anything else that we need to do for you?
Probably, but I can't think of anything, so
Okay.
we're good.
All right. Well, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move we
Can you hear me?
Yes.
A quick question for Travis. When and how, or do you have a process yet of how you're going to do audits on hangars to make sure that there's airplanes in the hangars?
Yeah.
We'll probably be starting to do hangar inspections, so we'll do it that way.
Are those going to be snap inspections?
No, they'll probably be scheduled. That's my guess.
What if there are no airplanes in the hangars? What is there?
Then we give them a letter and say, you need to have a
Aircraft.
a functioning aircraft within 60 days. Yeah. We,
Storage units.
yeah, storage. We used to have quite an issue with it. We really don't have too big of an issue. There is you talking about one in Hangar Row, Scott?
There's a couple in Hangar Row. And did you ever hear back or hear about the sale of the one hangar I told you about?
No, I have not. So get with me afterward and let me know what hangars you saw that you're concerned about, and I'll go check them out.
Okay, sounds
I've got a
good.
bunch of aircraft in my hangar. All right. Scott, anything else?
No, that is all. Again, apologize that I couldn't stay there for the whole meeting. But I should be there at the 4 o'clock meetings. So thank you.
Motion to adjourn? Bill, did you make a motion? A second?
I'll second it.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned.
Yeah.
Guess right with my wife.
Painless.
Said, this one's gonna go till 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I figured it was going to go to 8.
And you were good. Only 2 minutes off.
Is the meeting no
Nice
longer
to
being
meet you.
recorded?